Yeah. We are now until 7:30 tonight.
Is it only tonight?
I'd like to start with our regular board meeting. Tonight of February 22nd, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Park District Commissioners for the Lake Bluff Park District here in Lake County, Illinois. We're calling the meeting at 6:32. Can I get roll call, please, Marcia? Here.
Commissioner Raymore.
Here.
Commissioner Reader.
Here.
Commissioner Welch.
Here.
Commissioner Weber.
Here.
President Hughes.
Here. And next, may I ask for approval of our agenda for this evening?
So moved.
Second. Roll call, if you could please.
Is that Welch that seconded? I
Yes.
did. With your voice. Commissioner Lang. Commissioner Lang. Yes. Commissioner Raymore. Yes. Commissioner Reader.
Yes.
Commissioner Welch.
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
President Hughes.
Yes. Next on our agenda, I'd like to invite community and outside of community folks who are here tonight to address the board for the statement of visitors. This permits people who are here as well as present on Zoom to make up to a 3-minute statement to the board regarding any matters that are or are not on our agenda for this evening. So first, we can get some folks here tonight, so please, if you'd like to stand up and.
You want us to, it's not an agenda, I don't think you wait for that.
No, I said agenda or done, you're welcome to address us.
Gail Gamrat, 660 Green Bay Road. Here we are again, as we move into the spring, you have a few people here who are the only residents in town who are dreading warmer weather for what it brings to our homes and our sanity. One of the most harmful and stressful noises coming into every corner of our properties. It was very difficult for us to read the recommendations the Park District has put forward to extend hours of Blair Park pickle courts. Using once again, a divisive, one-sided survey, giving the community with no context of the harm these courts are causing or solutions that the village asked you to consider 8 months ago. You are soldiering on without consideration of the residents' health, sanity, home value, or goodwill. As they are reporting in lawsuits across the US, if you can hear pickleball from a home, the courts are too close. Industry standards, as you know, say they should not be closer than 500 feet. As you are aware, you cannot sound mitigate when courts are so close to homes. The Blair courts are 25 feet from our backyard. They were a mistake because the Park District did not do the proper research in placing pickleball courts so close to a home, and the noise ordinance it violates. We are asking you to fix the mistake. All people make mistakes, it's fine. For the Lake Bluff pickleball community, for the neighbors, it is the right thing to do, and it's your responsibility to make this right for the town, as we all deserve a non-divisive solution to this issue. For 8 months, you've been asked by the village to find a viable solution and go through a process that everyone else in the village needs to do. You continue to frustrate the pickleball players with misinformation, and you seem to find no problem in setting up the residents against each other. This is defamation and lying through omissions of facts. You have shown that you love the narrative that the courts have to be close due to a few residents over the Park District made a mistake and should never put the courts 25 feet from somebody's property. The report in your packet leaves out a lot of valid information by not considering the revenue the courts would make if they were once again tennis courts. The new programming revenue, which you say is $6,000, data is misleading because the current hours already allow for all programming. Again, twisting the facts. The stress that this has caused our family is immense. We do not like being talked about in surveys. I'm sure none of you would like that either. But again, you're setting up this discord and you have the power to stop it. We all know you like to control the narrative. What is it going to be? Some people in town are saying you want somebody to sue, so that would be, you could look like a victim. Are you going to continue to divide this town? Are you going to keep positioning yourself to try to increase court times in courts that break the noise violation that did not go through the zoning process? The process that stopped, that other Lake Bluff residents had in order to stop courts in Tingley Oaks and with the middle school sports courts. How much of the taxpayers' money are you going to spend on legal consultation to keep these courts when there are other options. Please, we can all find a solution. There are options, resources for pickleball players and the residences. Lake Bluff is better than this. Please stop dividing us and do the right things.
Hello, Leif Gamrat, 660 Green Bay Road. As I said the other night at the facilities meeting, the distance I am to you guys is actually farther away than the distance that folks on our backyard. I attended the facilities meeting right here on February 12th. The dedicated community volunteers who take their time to serve on this committee stated strongly that they could not recommend the increase of hours before thoroughly exploring alternative options that address the neighbors' concerns. Specifically, they asked you to look at other locations and do more research on sound. Yet you are slated to ignore this advice, increasing the programming and hours of use. This is yet another example of the leadership of this board sidestepping the important processes that are in place to serve as checks and balances to protect the public. Lake Bluff Noise Ordinance 4-1-2, any act, condition, place, thing, or use of property that shall subsequently annoy, injure, or endanger the comfort, health, or safety of the public is hereby specifically declared to be a public nuisance. 4-1-5, it is hereby declared to be a nuisance for any person within the limits of the village to produce or permit to be produced in or upon any premises or upon any street or public area, any offensive noise to the disturbance of the peace or quiet of a neighborhood or any person residing in the vicinity of such premises. The Park District is in violation of this noise ordinance, and you are setting up the unwitting pickleball players to be in violation of it too. Other Lake County residents have stopped or are in the process of stopping their park districts and country clubs from building or using pickleball courts close to homes due to noise. And those cases are from towns with much more lenient noise ordinances and courts farther away from Blair Park's 25 feet. Research shows that pickleball courts within 100 feet of a home bring down the property's value 10 to 20%. Even worse, 30 to 50% of people who are in the market for a new home refuse to even look at a house near pickleball courts. It's like living next to a pig farm. Why didn't your survey ask if individuals were willing to have public pickleball courts 4 paces from their property line with their subsequent unhealthy noise levels, their drastic drop in property values, and their negative toll on the surrounding community? With a loss of 20% of our home's value, we couldn't even move if we wanted to. Nobody here would, and everybody here would fight tooth and nail to stop the drain of thousands of dollars from their pockets. Please do the right thing. Put the courts back to tennis and unlock them for the community. Think of our camps, after-school programs, and families who just want to play. The neighbors of the Park District are hopeful you will do the right thing, because how can anyone keep promoting something they know is harmful to the health and well-being of the residents for the rapacious pursuit of profit? In closing, I implore the other board members to be the conscience and moral compass that is so desperately lacking in its leadership.
Thank you.
Hi, Katie Pavlik, 670 Green Bay Road. Okay. So here we are again, hoping this time you will listen and actually hear how pickleball is negatively impacting our lives. The noise during the games can be heard inside our home, and it is a very high and disruptive sound, dramatically different to that experience with the court usage prior to the resurfacing in 2021. The noise is almost constant when the courts are open in the summer, so it becomes inescapable for us. The Park District has a choice in where to provide pickleball opportunities, and the pickleball community has a choice in where to play. We as neighbors to Blair Park have not been given a choice about what happens in our backyard or the noise entering our homes. As a member of the Friends of the Parks, I was the only neighbor told about the resurfacing project, but the Park District didn't let me know about the increase in noise the new courts would bring. They should have done their due diligence back in 2021 when the courts were built. I doubt we would be here today if they had. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked that here in Lake Bluff, where we are proudly community oriented, we are having a conversation about where one side chooses to play a game and one side is defending the freedom to feel calm and relaxed in our home. Just a few other quick points. One, the survey left out any impact the courts have on nearby homes. And I don't just mean the noise, but also the dramatic drop in property value. I'm not certain that all of the Blair Park supporters would have been so cavalier about playing there if they really knew how it was affecting their neighbors. The board packet, this current board packet, makes no mention of our concerns or the fact that the Facilities and Programs Committee actually voted not to recommend increasing the hours. It also leaves out the fact that the sound mitigation explored would cost $50,000 and can't be used on the current fences. Oh, and because the courts must be locked to help the pickleball players abide by the posted hours, no tennis players can use them. And as you know, there is a tennis court and backboard there that many park residents use, especially kids. Again, I really can't believe that we're having this conversation. The park district made a mistake in putting their pickleball courts at Blair Park. They shouldn't be that close to homes ever. And there's a ton of litigation and ordinances across the country that can attest to that. Please fix this mistake.
Thank you. And excuse me, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to make comments?
No, there are no comments on Zoom.
Thank you. All right, on to verbal communications from staff first.
We don't have anything other than what is in your packets. Jim, was there something you were going to highlight from your report, or was it the tractors?
No, we were gonna talk, you talk about the trailers or the golf?
I think it was the tractors that are mentioned in the park report that are ordered. The two for the golf course.
Yeah, the zero turnaround, yeah,
Be delivered next Friday.
that's correct. And the only other mention I would have is just remind everyone that March 9th is our summer registration. That will start at 8 AM. So, you know, families that are trying to register for certain camps that we know that are very popular, that will, I'm guessing Camp Kickahow will be one of the first camps to fill up. So just remind, if you talk to people, 8 AM is when we open up on that Saturday for registration.
Yeah. It looks like it's in the program guide. I saw, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, right?
Yeah, and the only other thing I mentioned from my report, which is page 4, I did attend the legislative breakfast last week, put on by IAPD, bringing a lot of our legislators and talk about some different bills that are going to be affecting park districts that are coming up. I was hoping to see Senator Morrison there and thank her for her support on our OSLAD grant. Unfortunately, she was not in attendance. So they have another one at the end of this week down in Northbrook, which I hear she's confirmed for. So may attend another one and try to touch base with Senator Morrison. But other than that, that's all we have. Staff has for verbal communication.
Thank you. Attorney report, did you have an attorney with us tonight? No, not I said. Thank you for being with us. Finance Administration and Future Planning Committee.
We met last week. We have a lot to talk about, but we'll get into that, I think, a little bit later on in the conversation tonight.
That sounds good. Parks and Beach Committee, we have not met, but I know it's soon to be time to do that. Facilities and Programs Committee.
We did meet on the 12th and we had a discussion about the OPEC grant and we'll talk about that later. And then also, we talked about pickleball. We went over the survey. The consensus by the committee was to have the board review the hours while moving forward with external mitigation. Yeah. I think that was, yeah, those were the items that we did.
Thank you. Golf Committee, Paul is not able to be with us tonight. I didn't know if there's anybody who was in attendance for the meeting who could.
It's actually a long meeting. It's pretty productive.
We go.
Okay. Yeah, so we talked about programming. The intro to golf was a very successful youth program last year that was held in the month of July. We're adding another session of that in the month of June. And then a different, pretty exciting idea is to add also an adult intro to golf or help with golf, type session running at the same time. So we'd have, well, we'd have a youth program, and then after that, we'd have an adult program, but I'm interested in working on certain skills in golfing. We would bring back the youth, league in the fall. That was pretty popular as well. And then just changing some dates on that, or days of the week. And then we'd also do one, night on the range special event. It was very popular last year. The second one, we tried to combine a second one with a Bluffinian that was, didn't work out as well as we'd like to. There would still be 2 Bluffania concerts separate at the end, as they've been in the past, and then the one night on the range. I think we were talking more of a July timing for the night on the range. So number of exciting events. Also talked to Golf Visions, who had hired a new club manager to work in the office here, and they're getting them ready for the season. The golf course actually opened today. They did a soft opening, so if you drove by anytime during the day, it's pretty nice weather, and there were quite a few people out there. And then, as we mentioned, the tractors have been ordered; those should be delivered in a week. And you could, we mentioned that at the Friends Foundation, that there was an idea that the golf committee discussed of possibly replacing the hand carts,
The push cards.
push carts, and bringing that to the Friends for potential sponsorship.
That's good. Okay, and it's good to know that the golf course is open today, because I know it was closed as of yesterday, and it was great to see a multi-use golf course of some young folks in their shorts playing golf, and a lot of people with their dogs running at the same time. So it was a well-used but multi-use golf course yesterday.
John, is that the earliest the golf course has ever opened?
I'm sorry.
Do you know, is that like the earliest time of year that the golf course is opened ever?
I don't know.
It was brought up at the golf committee, and they said they've opened up and when the weather's been good. And not necessarily ours, but they had mentioned other golf courses. This might be the earliest for ours. Yeah.
Take advantage of the warm weather. Okay, Friends of Lakeville Parks.
So we met just before this meeting, just 2 quick things. The color run date has been set for June 15th. So that, as you know, is our major fundraiser. So there was a really robust discussion about increasing sponsors, as well as how to develop it more into of an event. So the color run itself, like mostly it's just the people that are doing the run that go to it. But what if we brought out like a coffee truck, and things like that. So you get people like walking around, walking their dogs, so whatever can come, sort of hang around and cheer on the runners. So it's a good discussion about that. And then a discussion about the 100th anniversary as well. So in the, not this meeting, but the last meeting, the committee was officially formed by the Friends. And it's off to a great start. As of now, the committee exists of just people on the Friends board, but they're actively looking to recruit other community members who specifically have marketing experience and fundraising experience. So if we know anyone in town that might be a good add to that board, they have a serious goal of raising around 2 million. So, and that's like a well thought out plan, so they haven't shared the exact specifics of the plan, but they talked about how they're kind of looking at like, from a pledge drive standpoint, people could do monthly payments to their pledge, like all this kind of stuff, ways that people contribute, as well as corporate donations and the possibility of a large match as well. So there's quite a bit going on there. I think some great people heading it up. So yeah, if there are anyone, just, reach out to me or John Hirsch or Jennifer, whomever, and we can kind of point them in the right direction.
Yeah, I would just add to that too, that that board was talking about really trying to align with this board early on because of the planning activities for some sort of event and fundraising for the 100 year. So you'll be hearing from the foundation. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Good, thank you with the new direction that's going.
The only other thing I just quickly mentioned that was brought up was the scholarship. So there was some meeting with the multilingual meetings, from the school district that are going on now and talking about the need for scholarships, maybe extending camps or preschool, challenges of transportation. So President Hirsch has attended those meetings. I know they've reached out and contacted Jim. Dr. Lealy has reached out and we're meeting in the next week. So we'll be bringing back some more information about those scholarships. So we do have scholarships currently, but we're talking about expanding.
Oh, so this is dovetailing with what the school had sent out about asking for contributions for families to help participate in camp programs?
Yeah, I think.
This is actually different.
Oh, this is different from that. Oh,
Right, Jen? So there's the Bluffers in Need program,
yeah,
which is in like school newsletters and whatnot.
right.
But from what I understand, this is a different group. It's specifically the multilingual task force.
Yeah, I think it's a different group.
Okay,
Yeah, I was confused. I thought they were related efforts. So.
yeah.
As far as I know, yeah. I didn't hear that, they didn't mention the Bluffers, would you call it
Bluffers in Need.
yeah,
Yeah.
they didn't mention anything.
Well, I'll meet with the superintendent here as soon as I'll clarify.
That is so terrific because the school board had talked before about the needs of some kids who just aren't able to attend camp, and that puts them behind for athletics, it puts them behind for socialization, and they have that, and it kind of volunteers, and it's terrific. So, great, thank you, thank you. We jump next to commissioners' comments, and I realized that we don't have an agenda item in here for our Lobola liaison, who is Sue, who's not able to. We stepped down for a minute, so, but we can, I will speak about Lobola in the president's report. Just to quickly, update everyone on what, I've been doing, and I've been working with John was doing. First thing was the Lake Bluff Yacht Club, did reach out and ask for a letter of support from the board, regarding, the rebuild of their facility down at the beach, because North Shore Water Reclamation came in at an offer that was half of what it would be for them to do a rebuild, and everybody knows how fancy our Lake Bluff Yacht Club is with the chain link fence and wooden structures, so it's going to be expensive to replace. So as a board, we did provide that letter of support that was read at the North Shore Water Reclamation meeting, and thank you to Jim Lakeman, who put together some numbers to be able to be shared with them too, which were really impressive about what we have for a sailing program, which includes the growth we've had year by year, winding up in 2022 of 73 participants, which includes an evening sail program for families. And we brought in over 35,000 of revenue, plus we employed 7 staff members. So that was really terrific. So hopefully that helped the yacht club. The other item that we had was, and Sue, I'll bring you in on this too. We sat with Ben Miller and Michelle Barevchik of Lobola and talked about opportunities that can come up for the Audubon. Birdscaping, thank you. I knew there was a eloquent word for that, that will take place in Belforet. And so they are really looking for our support with that. They do in-kind dollars and so forth with this grant that they're looking for, but that's going to be a great opportunity there. And Sue, I'll ask you, is there anything from Lobola that? No, I'm trying to think. No, nothing. Okay. John and Vicky and I attended a tri-board meeting with the school and with the village, and there was a presentation by the village to talk about the RIO process and how it's changed with their new format that they developed as of 2019. And then also I just wanted to bring up the school funding, but that's terrific that that's already there. Anything else for commissioners?
I do want to just point out the numbers at the facility, this fitness center are looking great. If you notice, they're at 850.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make, and I noticed that it was an increase in the senior and then in the student membership. So again, kudos to staff for adding the student membership. And then I just want to do another shout out to Ron, who is just like bringing all these folks in, because his class is always packed, so with like 20 plus members working out with the weights, it's really cool to see. So again, that's great to see that number going up.
Yeah, that was really good. Thank you. One thing to add, Mark Hardew is moving to Florida. So he will be leaving us soon. He works upstairs. He's been here forever, and boy, we're gonna miss him because he's our morning opener and he always comes up with the question of the day.
Yeah.
Just a great employee,
Yeah.
so.
And it's interesting, both of those, Mark and Ron went to high school together, they grew up here, so and they're working in art district, part-time, so, but they just both really seem to enjoy their jobs.
All right, on to the consent agenda, which consists of, for this evening, the approval of the minutes of January 22nd, 2024, the regular board meeting. The approval of minutes of the February 5, 2024 committee of the whole meeting. The invoice schedule for ACH cables for the period of January 17th, 2024 to February 15th, 2024, and the purchase cards ratification. I'll ask the first if anyone has any questions or comments on those four items, excuse me.
One question on the payables report, and it's not, so HR source. It's on page 21, and it's all the way over, there's $7,600, and it's, I assume that and it's an outsourced HR services, I assume that's replacing Tina, like temporarily, or, what is that?
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's, we're working with HR Source, they are providing an interim HR specialist who's working 2 6-hour days plus some various other hours, but generally 2 6-hour days in the office during the week. And then and one of the main things, other than employee relations, assisting with this payroll processing, they are also assisting in recruiting for a new full-time.
How is that? Do you like them?
Do I like the interim?
Yeah.
They're helpful. This is a person that was here in 2018 and 2019 in the same role as an interim
Okay.
back then. So he has some familiarity with the agency. I think that was helpful.
Is there cost savings? Like, is this something we would want to continue, or do you want to, do you see another Tina coming into this?
It's not enough for what we need,
Okay.
but I'm doing a lot of
Okay.
extra work right now, so it's clearly not enough
Yes.
hours, and he doesn't have more hours that he can work, but from other assignments. And I think that the district with, we go from 110, 120 employees right now to 260 in the summer, and all the onboarding and training, so it's having like a full-time position that's gonna require, somebody here. So we've started conducting the first round of interviews. We've had 4 in so far, and we have a few more to go before we finish the first round.
Cool.
So our ideally, we'd like to have somebody on board in March.
Any other questions on the items of the consent agenda? Okay, seeing as none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda, items A through D. So moved.
Second.
And roll call, please.
Commissioner Lane? Yes. Commissioner Raymore?
Yes.
Commissioner Reader?
Yes.
Commissioner Wall? Yes. Commissioner Weber?
Yes.
President Baylor?
Yes. Next up, we have our monthly year-to-date financial report. Ms. John, I'm turning to you on this one.
To the
25.
25, yes. All right, you see the report that memo starting at page 25, going through page 28, it's prepared by our interim finance consultant, Rich Hoffman. And The one that I know would have some questions or comments is Commissioner Greenfield, but he's not here. So, you're welcome to look at it. Let us know if you have any questions or comments. I think one of the things that we've talked about before, this is just a lean time of the year for Park District. Don't have any tax dollars coming in before the end of May, really into June. So it's relying mostly on fees for services. But
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about just like kind of overall cash flow on an annual basis of the park district. A couple things I'll just kind of note here and jump into it. Number one, Rich needs to kind of enhance the graphs a little bit. They're not exactly user friendly. Number two, on page 28, you know, this kind of looks at just the OpEx of the month. You know, personnel services are going to be down the first several months, just, you know, because for new staff. And I would like to maybe dive into contractual services a little bit more. You know, those make up a whole kind of litany of things there, but you know, those are down $26,000 versus budget too. So yeah, I'll be at a lean time. You know, Jim, seems like things are still coming along, you know, at a nice clip. And expenses are reduced. So yeah, kudos to everyone. Yeah.
All right, and especially as we're gonna be moving into this further, on our agenda, any other questions? And the motion to accept the financial reports as presented.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please, Marcia.
Commissioner Lang. Yes. Commissioner Raymore. Yes. Commissioner Reader.
Yes.
Commissioner Wong.
Yes.
Commissioner Levitt.
Yes.
President Taylor.
Yes. Okay, on to new business and action items. First up is pickleball with our survey results, programming and options. And I know that when we first put out the packet, we talked about approval, but with the memo that's included for tonight, we do have this really now as approval before for discussion. Before we go into this, I'll start with this. When everybody is first elected as a commissioner on the board, you think it's the park district, it's not that hard, it's the park district. And then when you're first thrown in, you just realize the assets that we have and the parks and the beach and the finances and everything else, and you just are learning so much so quickly. I just learned within the last month or so that there are 5 designations of community parks. Thank you very much, Commissioner Lane. And from those 5 designations, community parks, there are mini parks, there are neighborhood parks, there are community parks, there are special use parks, and there are open land parks. And I can see our attorney nodding along with this. Each of them have different designations. Each of them have different needs. And Blair Park is a community park. And by that definition, that nature, it has community-based recreation. It is active and passive programs that it offers. It has a broad community appeal. It's a place where people come to play, and it provides the identity of your park district. And you could have more than one community park. We can also probably call Artesian a community park, but Blair Park is a community park because of what we offer here. So it makes it unique. And actually, the golf course is a separate thing. It would be a special use park. So in looking at what we have here, there has been for quite some time, some ongoing conversation about Blair Park use, and obviously pickleball as part of that. There have been many discussions internally, and I really appreciate staff working with Lake Forest to be able to create that survey, because this is not just how Blair Park will be used, but also where pickleball is played within our immediate area with our sister park over in Lake Forest. I really appreciate the work that John Beeler's been doing because he has been reaching out to other park district executive directors to talk about how pickleball is perceived there, how it's played there, and how the residents of those areas look at pickleball. I've had the opportunity as well to speak to other park district board presidents and talk about how pickleball affects their community, specifically in Glendale, because their foot park is situated, and it's a community park too. It's got a pool, it's got a splash pad and pool, and it has pickleball and tennis that is very close to the residents as we have here. So this is not, let me rephrase it. It's good to learn from other communities that have gone through this because it's not an uncommon problem. It's a common situation that's going on, and it's good to learn from others to hear how they have worked through this with their respective communities. One of the things we did ask staff to do is not just the survey, but also to look at how pickleball is played there. And so I guess at this point, I want to kind of turn it over to Emily and perhaps to Jim as well, to talk about the survey and to talk about what staff sees with pickleball.
What was the second question?
What staff sees with pickleball.
Oh.
Because when we started the pickleball program, it's really kind of like a tsunami of people who wanted to play that didn't want to play before. You open up the memberships, and then with the closing of the courts, we had a lot of people retract their memberships. So the programming changed. So why don't we start first with the survey?
And I, the staff did the survey and they had, the committee was able to review it and, give their suggestions. And so the survey had almost 400 respondents and it did go out to about 5,000 emails, is that correct?
Yes.
So lots of people were able to have the opportunity to write their comments. As you can see, there was about, what, 150 comments? It's on,
Yeah.
A lot.
a lot. And it's everything from, yeah. So you can see the majority of the, let's see, exactly. So 142 comments, which at the committee meeting, that was a pretty substantial number, and the amount of survey was higher than normal. And so the feedback that we got from staff was that, and you could see it from the survey itself, that the pickleball folks would like to, they're working and they would like to see some weekend hours, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, of course, and then but staff came up with the solution of having Sunday, Monday be the no open place as a recommendation. Again, staff has done an amazing job of providing internal mitigation with changing hours, reducing the usage of the courts, going from 6 pickleball courts to 4 pickleball courts, which was originally what was there in 2016 was 4. So we're at the same number as it was in 2016 when the noise wasn't as noticeable. Also, the controlling of the play by locking the courts. Now, of course, they're locked at those times, so during the day, and tennis can be played and pickleball. And then dispersing the play, as staff has mentioned, but having 4 extra pickleball courts at Artesian Park. So again, those are all different types of mitigation that staff has done internally. So the committee had requested for the board to review the hours and also move forward on looking into external mitigations, which would be the acoustic curtains, and then possibly some green paddles, which are now being certified by the Pickleball Association. So those were some things that the committee had made as a consensus to have staff look into.
And I would just add for the survey itself, some of our staff now with Lake Forest Parks and Rec staff in developing survey questions that work for both communities. So they were pretty similar.
Jeff, it's more of a question for you and John, but, you know, in your discussions with other communities, I guess, what are some of the challenges, and potential solutions that other communities are going behind?
The. There is no industry standard because the industry of pickleball, that's probably the biggest takeaway. And the concern is that as people want to play and as they play better, you know, it's loud, it's a lot, it's got a different noise than tennis, clearly. So the constant, and I heard this from Emily, John and I heard the same thing. The constant is that to control the sound, you control how you control the hours. You look for disbursement by having other pickleball courts for people to go to. It's sound mitigation, whether you're putting up the sound mitigation curtains, you're using the green, you know, trees and things like that, whatever kinds of mitigation you can do. Some people are assessing fees, even for residents to play, and that again, hopefully decreases your amount of people so that the sound is decreased as well. I'm missing another one.
Moving the
Disbursement.
I think- What's interesting about this, like none of these like solutions have something to do with like reducing like the noise of the paddles and the. Is that something that is becoming more, I guess, industry standard? Right, because if so many people, I guess so many communities are facing this challenge, but you know, just kind of totally tons of this information, like. You would think that the industry would be like, hey, we have to do something, we have to change.
They do have the owl paddles that are certified now, and there's.
But what certified mean?
Approved by the US Pickle Association, USPA.
And you can find videos online showing you the difference between the regular pickleball paddle versus the owl paddle.
Okay.
And one of the thoughts that we've talked about staff is like maybe purchasing or even having pickleball friends, maybe because there's about $2,000 in the fund for pickleball, is making like getting 16, because we have you can have 16 players out there right now, getting 16 paddles so that folks can borrow it. Jim had a great idea, you leave your driver's license to come get it. And then the more people use it, the more they get comfortable with it, especially if we have a nice sign that says, hey, we have green paddles you can use, and providing them. And you know, that's something that the kids can use after school recreation. So it's something I think, and then have the pickleball coming out of the pickleball fund. So, and those paddles are about 170 per paddle. So there'd be, I mean, it would be doable.
Sure.
And it would be a good start.
Presumably maybe nicer than what some people are using. I know I've got like two for 20 or something.
They're really nice.
I don't give an owl, I give a certified green paddle. And it changes the quality of the sound. You don't have a very sharp sound like whack, I have a softer, it's still sound, yeah, but it is a softer.
Feel better too.
And does it feel better? Again, having a nice hour plus pad, it's better than.
Yeah, I haven't really played, but yeah.
So.
Is there any reason why someone wouldn't get that type of paddle? You know, like, is it?
There's a lot of research on it.
Cost.
But there's somebody that's really into pickleball, right? It's like really into increasing their skill. Like, does it affect your style of play or, you know, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and there's problems like, you know, I mean, people that have already spent $150 on a paddle are not gonna run up, you know, wanna run out and spend $150 on a different paddle.
mhm.
It's just gonna take a while, but there are things that are coming out, they're already creating a kiosk that can be located on the court that you can rent, and you can make that, you know, that you can only play with by, you know, the quieter paddles, whether you bring your own, if you don't, you have to rent one. Problem with that really is enforcement, you know, it's gonna stick somebody out there, you're gonna go out to monitor it, it, you know, I didn't think it would help, but it's gonna take a while before, you know, it's moving in that direction. I mean, we knew, I don't know, again, the research pickleball has exploded starting in 20 and really 21, just an interest during COVID, it's taken off nationwide, courts were built everywhere. And there's a very high demand. The residents are looking, for the opportunity to play. It's creating, again, the conflict with neighbors and the noise. So the industry is looking at different solutions. The quiet paddles are one that's moving in that direction, but we think that's probably going to be fairly slow, as it moves in that direction.
I have my friends on pro in California, I'm just asking about it.
So I think, and I was talking to Stuart earlier today, I think the goal, like when I think about it, is pickleball has been played there for a while. And it's trying to get that number back to where it was before COVID, because COVID is when it started exploding, and that's when it just became so much noise, right? Versus where it was pre-COVID, and kind of trying to find solutions to bring it back to that setting versus where it is, right now. And I think we're moving in that direction with the internal mitigation that's been done with the hours, to both in the play. And I think it's really going to help us that the Lake Forest now is going to have 8 pickleball courts, because I think staff mentioned that those memberships, half of them are Lake Forest. So Lake Forest has their own court. They have 8 courts over there. They have like a setting for socializing in the middle. Really, really nice courts. So I'm thinking that there's going to be a decrease in numbers, which is going to help the noise factor. And that should be our goal, is to get it kind of closer to where it used to be. Because again, pickleball is a really great activity that actually has helped a community develop. And to take it away completely, when it was there, it just grew. So we have to come back to where it was before, kind of finding solutions. So I think staff's done a really good job of disbursement, controlling the hours. And then I think these are really good solutions with the paddles. And then even the curtains, adding the curtains, because that's, again, when we had that meeting at the beginning last summer, Nikki went out there and you tested the sound difference with the curtains, and you noticed it. And Sue, you mentioned that you noticed a difference too, with the muffling, the sound too. And then Mark McGovern also said he went out and he noticed a different
Naked ear as well, as,
Yeah.
with the thing.
So, trying to find all those solutions, that we can possibly do to kind of keep our programming going until we have other solutions. Really.
The one thing I'd like to say, and I've said it before, based on the data I've looked at, and I've done a lot of research, just from through the Facebook pages, there's a mitigation page, and there's another one on noise relief, I think. And they'll all tell you that those curtains don't work if the courts are less than, so the recommendation is 500 feet away from residents to keep a court. And you can mitigate if they're between 200 and 300 feet away. But once you get to less than 100, the mitigation with those curtains is not worth the cost. So I would say we really need to do some research. The only people we've really talked to are people that sell the curtains. But to really do research, if we're going to do mitigation curtains, we need to make sure they're going to work, because they're not cheap.
I spoke with Dave Dillon, who's the president of Glenview, and Flick, and I've been to Flick, you've been to Flick, a couple of us, and they're very close. I don't have the exact measurements off the top of my head, but that's one of the things that they did, is put in the set. They put 2 things. They put an electronic lock on their, on their gates, so that play is only for certain hours, and you have to register actually to play. They do have open play, but they make sure that the courts that are closest to the residences are scheduled for play. And they do get the sound mitigation curtains up, so they said that it's very helpful.
Was it Glenview, did you say?
Yeah.
So you went to visit a couple, like I was, from the naked ear, like I would walk around the one side and it was loud and painful, and I would walk around the other side and it was like nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was a huge difference, yeah.
So
I didn't notice that big of a difference, but I was also a little bit further away because the houses were on the other side of the parking lot, like way far away. So, I thought it was interesting that they had them in all 4 sides of the,
and one of the things he mentioned is that then the pickleball players get sound.
Yeah.
So. So hopefully they only play for now. All right, so again, just to reiterate that we have been working internally. This has not been a creative one, this has been a lot of internal research to make sure that we are addressing this, because we realize it's a concern with our district and a concern with the community. I will say that I remain optimistic that we are going to be able to make the right move forward with this, especially in concert with the village and with our neighbors. And you know, the thing I learned about the community park is where people come to play, and not just play pickleball, but play all over. And that really leads to better mental health and community health. So we want to keep our identity with Blair Park, because I think that's how people in our community recognize it. And we will continue in what we are doing with working with the park district, with the staff, and taking their recommendations in mind, and working with the village and the community residents to make sure we have the appropriate programs. Okay, going on to North Shore Water Reclamation Basin Project.
Okay, we have, Deputy Director, Jim Lakeman, and myself, met with, there's nothing in the packet, on this, it's discussion one. Met with the, operating engineer, Steve Waters from North Shore Water Reclamation District. He came out here to our building, to talk about the project and the, you know, this coming summer, how that's gonna affect the beach. And, he has, and then followed up with, the following week, having a meeting with the village where, again, he reiterated the same information. This is gonna cost the district more money to do this pause for the construction. But they feel that it's important because it basically was what was told, what was basically promised to the community, to the park district, to the village, was that they would only lose one summer with the beach. So they felt that that was important. They're willing to, and the contractor is willing to do it, the cost, but they're willing to pay that cost and to go ahead and have that pause from Memorial Day to Labor Day, to allow full use of the South Beach area. The South Shelter would be open, potentially fencing off a kind of a temporary area for some yacht clubs, boats, maybe allowing the sail camp to come back for the summer. And so the bathrooms would not be finished, or the showers, they would like to get the plot, and the basin itself will be finished. It will be backfilled. It is looking, if you look down, it's looking like quite a structure from up on top of the wall, but that will be finished. That will, they had some better than expected weather for this winter. So other than about a week and a half of bad weather, they've really been able to keep working. And so they feel confident that the reservoir finished, backfill level for the beach area. And they're trying to get the plaza done. The access road will not be done. Or the bathrooms and outdoor showers, guardrails, some of that, landscaping. That they would have roughly about 2 to 2.5 months worth of work that they would come back after Labor Day and finish up. The only thing that and then we would be able to allow the church to come back. They've already met with us a few weeks ago. Come in and met with Jim and I. And so they would be back at South Shelter. We wouldn't do the tent on the beach this year. And the only thing that would be affected there, they have a few more, maybe 3 or 4 more Sundays after Labor Day that they typically keep going. So that area would be closed. So they may have to consider the Village Green or some other location for September. But so it was really pretty good news, or very good news actually, that the community will have its full beach back for you know, for the summer, and then they'll come back and finish up the project, and we'll have the new amenities that you know, that they're adding these, the bathrooms, showers, are adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to the project. So it's really a big win for the community, for the park district.
And we won't be under like a boil order or anything for water.
What are we doing for the outcome then? I mean, are we gonna?
So there's some discussion that we could bring the safety boat back down and at least 9 or 10 boats that offer the camp lessons.
Yeah.
There was originally some discussion whether they would want to bring some of their regular racing boats down that we use a lot, but they're not, if they would want to do that or not, but and if not, then they would just, it would be opened, but you would have to trailer your boat back and forth every day that you would go to use it.
So with people walking down to the beach and staff and everything, what are you going to recommend for the kayakers and the paddleboarders and everybody else? Because they're gonna want to use the beach.
Well, the south would be open for,
So if they trailer their stuff and just haul it down, you're fine with everybody with that kind of traffic? Is that okay?
I think we're gonna have to have a lengthy conversation with our product manager, Diane Zavitz. She has not been available since we've had this discussion, and she'll be, we're gonna be meeting with her later this week. So we're gonna have to talk about, do we have certain hours that, you know, people can come down and that's gonna be quite a bit of traffic with cars going up and down the access road, but that is a great question. And we have thought of that, and we just need to sit down with her and kind of lay out a plan that we can present to the Parks and Beach Committee.
Okay. All right, then we do need to get something going on that quickly because of
Cars, but like hand carts and everything, fine.
Yeah, and carts, that won't be an issue.
Yeah.
It'll be on the vehicle side of things.
Yeah, and on Sundays, if you've got the traffic for the church and you've also got the people who want to race that day, you're gonna have a lot
At
of.
least the races are at 4, you know, and.
Oh,
Yeah,
they start around noon.
Yeah.
They start coming down around 11:30.
yeah,
Really,
yeah, yeah. And church services, I think, are.
Maybe 2.
yeah,
Oh, that's right.
8:30 and 9:30.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then,
So yeah, we should schedule a Parks and Beach Committee
let's do it.
at the sometime in March.
Okay.
Is there any, it sounds great, but is there anything that we're not thinking of that we need to be thinking about in addition to like the traffic and things like that, that could be a like a wrench in the,
No, the only other thing that we'll have to, that I had discussion with staff today about was after Labor Day. And we need to find out from NSWRD if the access road's even gonna be available. When it won't be available for when they're gonna redo that road. So that would limit the number of rentals for the North Beach. So that's the other piece is after Labor Day.
and then did they, so after Labor Day, do they have an idea as to how many more months they're gonna need, like 3 or 4 more?
2 to 2.5.
Okay,
2 to 2.5. We want to be done before the asphalt plants close, which is in November, late November.
okay. Okay.
And are they gonna do? They'll just be done, they'll just leave, there's nothing else to do after that. I mean, it's all the plantings will be done, and then we still have to figure out railings on the road. And reinstall lights and all that checklist of files.
They're doing guardrails. We're in a small tussle with them right now with lights. Their staff removed, their laborers removed them by accident. They're not supposed to take the lights out. They were just supposed to do the guardrail, and they, got there and took it all out. So, so we're talking to the district about them paying to reinstall lighting. Right now, it's our twin lights that are hanging out there. I think we keep taking out bulbs because the neighbor complained that it was too much light, so it's every 3rd bulb, maybe. It's on those strings, but it's good compromise, still enough light that it was safe enough for staff and for people going down in the evenings.
Maybe this is too nitpicky, but yeah, so there's no guardrail there now.
Just the
Right.
safety fencing,
So if somebody, we just have so many little kids in our community. And
safety
it's,
fencing,
okay,
we put up, we insisted on that, as soon as they,
okay,
as soon as they took it down, we met with them and insisted, we were
okay,
surprised, we thought the Gale guardrail would be one of the last things they did. They had, unfortunately, they had time when they were starting the project because they hadn't been able to get approval from the village on transportation plan or construction transportation plan. So while they're waiting for that, they were just looking for busy work
Mhm.
and had their laborers remove the guardrail in lighting, which it was a mistake.
Yeah.
I think it should have been one of the last things, but.
Yeah.
So then we insisted on the light, on the fencing, and then once they did that, we installed the lighting.
okay, so that orange plastic fencing is,
That plastic fencing
Okay.
was steel post, yeah,
It's pretty sturdy.
okay,
yeah.
It won't stop a car, but if somebody fell, it would stop them.
Yeah, ships yeah. Child or something in bike.
It's amazing. It's great news.
mhm,
And it gives us use of the beach again for summer, so. And that's really nice. I didn't think that would happen, we did. Okay, thank you. All right, on to our Oslet Brand and Pool project. And I just want to say thank you again to Emily, to staff, to John, everybody who worked on getting this together for getting this grant, because when people hear, you know, everybody hears different things, and when they hear that we got a grant, it's really great compliments, because they harken back to the referendum that didn't go through and everything else, so everybody likes the pool, really. Okay. Please start, if you can.
Sure.
Take it away from here.
So the finance committee met on Thursday morning, I think it was, days kind of blend together. And the purpose of the meeting was to get a better understanding of kind of the timeline in terms of the conditions associated with that outside grant. And kind of, once we had that information, then we could do a dive into the budget for 24 and do kind of preliminary forecasting for 25. You know, obviously we're not in budget season yet, so we just painted some broad strokes, saying hey, revenues go up by 2%, expenses go up by 2.5%, and we keep the same debt service fees that we have to, because those are pretty well roadmapped. Keep the capital expenses as we have them earmarked right now. And so, you know, kind of from that analysis, which I'll kind of get to through here in a little bit, you know, we have enough reserves to actually fund this whole project with the grant. Whether or not we want to fly that close to the sun, just in terms of our kind of day-to-day expenditures, that's a conversation. I'm not, you know, we didn't want to make any recommendations. It's way too preliminary to make any recommendations associated with that. We really just wanted to kind of lay out the groundwork and make it, you know, relatively easy and digestible for everyone here to understand what's in front of us and hopefully have a productive conversation. Jeff, I think you are driving the bus here, so thank you very much. So yes, received a $600,000 grant from the state in January. As we all know, there are lots of kind of band-aids that the pool has undergone over the past several years, if not decades. And this grant gives us a great opportunity to address those. And now kind of to the timeline part of it, and this is really important. So we were awarded the grant in January, but it hasn't been actually ratified. Maybe the right term, not sure. Executed. I didn't want to use the word executed, so I just went ratified there. And we're expecting that to go through in April. And once that goes into effect, we have 2 years to complete the project. You know, and so you know, what I understand, it's, you know, not halfway done, not just getting the engineering drawings, it's like fully done. And kind of given the scope of the project, we have a couple different options here. One is to start it at the tail end of this year, kind of break ground in September, October, and ideally have it done by March, April of next year, so we wouldn't lose any of the season. And the other option is to kick it down the road to 25 and kind of undergo the same thing. Now, the way I understand the grant, how it's distributed is that if we choose a 2-year window, we can take half of it, or $300,000 up front. And that'll cover a lot of our engineering fees associated with the program. And then once the project's completed, the balance of $300,000 will be distributed to us. We can defer the project and make it a 3-year timetable, but we can't take any funds up front. So 2 different options we have there. This was the scope of the project as outlined in the honest agreement. So, you know, obviously we're 25 years past the usable life of this thing. So just band-aiding this thing and hoping is not a great strategy going forward. You know, we sat here and listened to, you know, Mike in the past talk about, hey, anything catastrophic could happen and we could lose the thing for an entire summer. So obviously deferring to 25, we roll a dice for another year. John, can you speak a little bit about kind of the scope of the project and maybe some of the figures that were used to arrive to the numbers you got?
Sure, we work with FGM, our pool architects who have done the work with our pool, including 2015 when there was some referendum money spent on the pool at that time. So they've helped prepare the estimates that were used in applying for the grant. So in that number, some of the, you know, the components of that are like an addition and renovation of the chemical or the, you know, sulfur, and that's building a new balance tank in there. So that's about $300,000. The work on the pool itself was work on the in-pool lighting, some concrete patching, repairing the gutter, so removing the gutter, making some repairs, and then re-leveling them, and then repiping the pool. That's very important. That's all the pipes, and that's where a number of our leaks are now. So that number is about 680,000. And then we, you know, get into there's some other duties you have, the design and engineering and construction manager for the project, site renovation, and some of the demolition that's done in the beginning. And you know, one of the things, again, that you're replacing part of the deck, but you're really just doing around the perimeter of the pool. So you're still going to see, you know, only about 10% will be new concrete. So it's still going to be a lot of old concrete. When we walk out, that doesn't look like, wow, you know, we have a new pool. It won't look like it. It'll be a new liner, and it should hold water. We will redesign the entry to the ADA restroom. That will be one of the best improvements, I think, really for the project. We have one now. The only access to it is through the guard room. You have to ask a lifeguard to get access to this ADA restroom, so that's really not, you know, appropriate. So we would reconfigure the access, so you would come from the lobby, the pool lobby, without having to ask permission to get to that. So that would be definitely one of the ideal fixes. And then it's just, you know, redoing some of the lighting, and there would be some shade and perhaps some games to try to add some, you know, some fun amenities, but that's in a nutshell, that's kind of what the project is.
Thank you. Just to provide a little bit more context about everything we're doing. Jeff, you can probably skip forward a little bit. This is just kind of what the timeline looks like right now. So after you go through ratification, funds are distributed, but at that time, we're gonna have to pay our architectural engineering firms. Sorry, I didn't make the font bigger. And that'll coincide with permitting, and then if we break ground in the fall post pool season, you know, generally speaking, I just use a placeholder of a third of the general contractor's fees due at that time. And then once the project's complete, the balance will be due. And we would receive $300,000, in grant money. So the cash outlay under this scenario is $2.15 million. So this is kind of a snapshot of where we are right now. So I took the general fund, the rec fund, special rec, debt, and capital projects. And you see at the bottom, we have, cash balance at the end of the year, or end of last year of $3.32 million. So, and if you look at it 24, the way we budgeted, more than $2.15 million that we need to go into all this. Jeff, can you skip forward maybe two slides? Or make it 3. There we go. Oh, one more. There, perfect. Thank you. So this is more granular on a monthly basis. So as kind of John alluded to a little bit earlier, when we were talking about the January finances, we don't take in any tax revenue until June and then September, and then we get some trickle over in October as well. So we're lean in the first half of the year. Of course, 4 projects will conclude in the first half of the year. So if it concludes in May and we don't get any tax revenue until June or July, we're going to fall down to a cash balance of $680,000. John, how much do you like to have in, I guess, reserves?
In the operating account, we usually,
Your
I mean,
target.
our minimum target balance is $750.
Okay, right, and from kind of all the, I guess, general practices I kind of read on my own too, there's a certain percentage that you want to have in there, and that 750 corresponds to kind of the national benchmark, so to say. Jeff, can you skip back a few? One more. Okay, and so just on the whole, it looks like we have enough cash to make this happen. Now, you've probably heard us all kind of talk about, keeping balances at 25%. So keeping balances at 25% is basically what our expenditures are versus what we have in a fund balance. And so the reason 25% is a benchmark. And I'd love to go back in minutes and see how we got to that exact number, because I looked at credit rating agencies and I couldn't find why 25% was so important. It was probably at a time the park district wasn't as in good fiscal health. We wanted to get that ratio higher so we could increase our credit rating, which we did last year. If we dip below that 25% number during the course of the year, that's fine. That's not looked at in any harmful manner. But at the same time, if we dip below that 25% number, we run the risk of going on credit. Try to watch negative, I'm sorry. And that really only affects us if we need to go to the capital markets and raise money for a project, which we're not doing anytime soon. So that's a decision everyone has to, as a board, we have to kind of come to a conclusion whether we want to draw on cash reserves to fund this project or find alternative solutions to help us fund this project. So if we just take that 25% kind of benchmark number as a whole, we actually have a lot more. We still have a decent amount of money to play with. Jeff, can you skip forward one? Perfect. So under this exercise, the middle column keeps that ratio at 25% for the general fund and the rec fund. Those are the funds we're most concerned. If we do that, we have $475,000 worth of headroom in the general fund and $650,000 of headroom in the rec. That's basically the amount of money that we have that we can allocate towards this project while still maintaining that 25% balance. Now, we also have $900,000 in the capital account. So if we take, we do have $2.02 million of available cash that keeps us above that 25% target to finance this project. Jeff, can you skip ahead to one, please? So this is the last one here, and this needs to be updated a little bit. So borrow these numbers from the last time we had, our bankers in from Piper Sandler to kind of talk about how much headroom we have without going to referendum. And these are the figures that they represented to us. So if you look at the proposed 2024 debt, that's basically how much headroom we have, to go out and borrow without, like I said, having this thing go to vote. So there's the option on the table. If we don't want to fund all of this out of the Federal reserves, that we can borrow a certain amount of capital for a short period of time to help, make sure that we have some wiggle room if they were to open up the pool and find something catastrophic, or if, some other event were to happen, the park district needed immediate funding. I always think it's a good idea to have some options, and if you don't use them, then you repay the debt and you wipe your hands of it. And then there is a second option about financing that Rich had mentioned to me that I would like to dive in a little bit further, and that is borrowing against future taxes. So, as we all know, we pay taxes this year for the year preceding it. So we have money, that money is already earmarked for us, but when we can actually borrow against that, I need to educate myself a little bit more on that. John, is that something that you have had an experience with?
I have not. I've heard Rich say, in through his accounting business, he worked with the school district that did that for like 5 years in a row. They
Right.
had some stuff come up financially where they had to do that just to kind of get out of that position they kept borrowing against next year's taxes, but that's really, I don't have experience with it.
Yeah. So that is kind of the, whatever, 10-minute version of kind of what the project is and kind of where it stands and the, I guess, options that we have on the table. There is more homework that the finance committee has to do, to kind of make sure that this board and really the community as a whole is comfortable with the package we're going to take. There are some figures in the packet tonight that look wrong, and I need to readdress them, but those are kind of like late figures. I don't have any effect on 24 and 25. But I just want everyone to just be comfortable with what they're looking at and hopefully ask the right questions. It's not an easy decision.
What is the timing, Scott, if we opted to borrow? How long does that process take to get up and running and then to be able to have that funding there?
It's something that you need to go back and talk with Dr. Sandler about. Just because in my opinion, we won't kind of have that kind of cash crunch period until, spring-ish of 2025. I think we have full time to enter into those conversations.
Okay, and then. And when you talk about option one being starting in September, October of this year, completing by spring of 2025, option two is delaying to 2025. Anything that came out of your committee discussion or further research that says, pros and cons of each one?
I think from a financial perspective, it's kind of an agnostic decision. I think there are a handful of other non-financial decisions that we can all consider. But honestly, the fiscal health of the park district is the strongest it's been in quite some time. We're not going to get out of any debt servicing costs for another 4 years. So this is a really great opportunity for us to address kind of one of the big items that's on our list. And we're in a good position to do so.
I would just say from, staff standpoint, a couple of points on that. I mean, you're doing it in 24. There's some benefits of the timing as far as starting and then having it completed next year during the 100th anniversary of the park district. I think would be something that would be nice. for the community. And we're only operating, one more season with it. If we wait to do it in 25, we're operating 2 more seasons. In doing it this year, it is a bit of a tight timeline, so we really are gonna have to give the architect the green light soon. Because we would need to be ready to go out for permits and for bidding by the end of May. And so it's you risk that the bids could be a little bit higher because it's a little bit later in the season for bidding out. So bids could potentially be a little bit higher with that timing. Where if you were wait to 25 and you do a thing, you have more time to plan. One of the biggest for the permits, there's a lot of permits needed by IDPH, and we'll be able to project without those. And that's a 8 to 12 week process with IDPH. You also have it with the village. Now, the village won't have the capacity to review a project of this size. They'll have to, I don't think, do it in-house. I think they'll have to outsource that, which then we pay for the, whatever. Typically, the village will waive the fees and just charge whatever fees are incurred. One area of concern is the RIO zoning. And if that's required, you heard me bring that up during that presentation with the village administrator. My concern was that, we're doing a lot of work and concentrating in the pool and hiring consultants and coming up with the timing and permits for that. If we were to have to develop an RIO plan for the entire campus, which is golf and paddle and pickle and the rec center and the pool, to really do a good job of creating a plan for that entire property, it could be months and spend tens of thousands of dollars to get community input and evaluate your amenities, to really do it right. That adds a lot of time, and a lot of money to a project that's already going to take, time and a lot of money. So we have to clarify that with the village. And my question was, could we just do, just the pool, to do an RIO plan for the pool, because we're only working on that. I have to worry about the rest of the campus. So he acknowledged, Drew Irving acknowledged it's a concern, a challenge, and that's something we'd have to talk further about with the village to see, because that could be a concern for the timing and trying to do that this year. Now, if we wait and do it next year, we would bid it out around December, January, when the contractors are filling up their calendar for next year. A lot of times you can get a little better pricing when you do it early in the season like that. But there's an increase in labor and what, the architects saying will be about, same project costs about 4.5% more a year from now than it will now. So I would say that's almost a wash, from what you might pay a little bit more bidding later in the season versus paying more for the project itself, because it's a year later. They just kind of balance each other out. So those are just some of the things to consider, with the timing this year and next year.
Reading the room on the Rio, I felt he thought that would be something that we could do. He was, I felt like he was like, well, it's not ideal, but it's something we could do. So I don't, what do you think? Did you get that sense? I thought it was a great question. It makes a lot of sense to ask, but I got the sense that we could.
I will. With the fact that it has to be a conversation first, I think it's important to have that conversation sooner rather than later. If we are looking with the shortened time frame. Yeah, we just don't know the perspective of the village as to how they would like to look at this.
What about, needing to do like a community group? So typically we're doing a project of this size. I mean, I know that the expenditures are pretty much baked in, right? So what we're gonna spend money on. Do we need to talk about doing a community input group
That
with citizens?
The RO.
So
Okay.
we did that already for this project. So we hosted one here. We had the
Yeah.
architect walk
Right.
through. And that was our community input when we could, kind of change or add things or whatever, but so we're not required to do another one as part of the Ozai brand.
Mhm.
But yes, part of the RIO, there probably at the local level will be some kind of meeting required with it.
Yeah, I'm talking about like, the last time the pool renovation was done, right, we had a group of community members saying, why don't we do this, or what about this? I know this is different, because this is more like the guts of the pool, right? So we're not saying, do we need, what color will the umbrella is gonna be?
Were you
You
at
know?
the meeting where you?
Yeah, I was there, I'm just saying like, do we need to consider that, as part of the process? Do we need to have a
Yeah.
community input group? And if so,
We did have it, and there was a lot of feedback. I mean, there was.
no, I was at that meeting, I'm saying like on an ongoing
Yeah.
basis.
And that I think would be the function of going through the RIO process.
Because we had that when they were doing the kiddie pool.
Yeah, yeah.
There was a committee of people that met on a regular basis with the park district or something, right? And,
Yeah, that was before my time, but probably,
Yeah, I sat in all those meetings, in the community input was the size, the shape, zero depth, entry, do we, how many shade structures do we have? It was all about the top wall, it wasn't about the main pool.
Right, so we're not really changing anything. We're just
Right.
replacing pipes and. then
Right.
concrete.
right, just bring that up as a
Maintenance.
thing,
Yeah.
yeah. And that, yeah, because that was more about like, what do we want the kiddie pool,
Right, that looked like, yeah,
but it was.
aesthetically, I think that was input from the
It was
community.
part of the process,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
So if we're looking at the timing of this, especially with bringing in IDPH and the village, with permits and possible, review through RIO, are we realistic in saying that September could be it? I mean, that's a lot of make ready to get, I think, March.
yeah, I spoke with, Ray Lee, the architect that we worked with in the past. He said it's a tight timeline, he needs to check with their professional to make sure that they feel that they could get everything done. It is easier that this is a lot more prepared than it is new, or different. So that helps, but he would definitely have to check if that's our, intent, is to do it. They have to check and make sure that they can, get all the construction drawings, finished and get ready to bid and go out for permits.
What do we need to do first to make this decision? Okay.
I think the timeline is probably the most important thing. What I would be helpful feedback for the finance committee would to be, do we want to pursue financing options? And if so, I guess was the kind of general scope of that, kind of given what you've seen tonight.
I'd like to see us pursue financing options to see what's available. Interest rates are higher than, than what we have right now with our current debt, but I'd like to just get a feel for what they. Thank you.
And having that cushion
Mhm,
rather than running close to the bone.
mhm.
And the borrowing against future taxes, that option,
We could explore that also, yeah,
Yeah.
just to know our options.
yeah, I thought that was interesting.
It is interesting because it does get us to, like I say, in the next couple of years, we're paying off Ellen Ball, so we're getting into a better
Right.
position.
Well, and if we technically, depending on when that project finished, if we only needed the money for a short amount of time too, it kind of makes sense with the timing of everything and when the tax payments come in.
Mhm.
Right, and like, in a perfect world, I almost view it as kind of a short-term bridge loan.
Mhm.
That's
what-
yeah.
Yeah, that's
Rather than, taking out debt.
Right.
So I think
right,
it's
I like that.
just as much of a conversation with the banker than it is a. Yeah, I guess. Municipal investment maker.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay, so the first thing is really looking at the financing with whether that can be done on time and keeping those conversations going with Ray Lee, with the architect, the pool architect as well, to say, what can we get going preliminarily to be able to do this, because we really can't, what does IDPH need then from us? Do they need the full scale of drawings and everything
Yes.
else?
Yes, we would, and so that's. They would have to have a lot of their work done up front for the engineering and architectural, which is, a big chunk of the fee. A lot of work has to be done up front.
Okay, well, then we'll do this as well, then is, we learn from Rio, that would like to have that preliminary conversation, we'll say, if this is what we're looking at, timing. Let's start now and get that feedback from the village as to where they think the scope would be for the review process, to see if it's going to be limited or expansive in scale.
Do we have an assurance from the architect that if we did decide to do it, it could be completed in the winter months with all the underground, the pipes, et cetera? And then, to have the pool open, I'm just wondering if we get delayed by a couple of months because of all the all the permitting we have to go through, we're gonna risk not opening, but what's the guarantee that we would open if we could at least hit our timeline?
Yeah, there would be more of an assurance to do it next year versus this year. Because Ray said there are still certain materials where there's fairly long lead times, still one of those things left over from COVID that happened and hasn't really fixed itself. The good thing is that the prices have finally stabilized. They're not shooting up dramatically every year like they were. But there are certain materials that are still pretty long lead time, and and so doing it next year, again, would mean we would bid it out around December, January. We would award the bid to be ready to go, but still, another thing that we could do if we were doing that is close the pool in the middle of August. That's in the middle of August, when the kids go back to school, that's when we reduce our hours dramatically for the pool.
Yep.
If we were to close it, we're giving the contractor really like 3 more weeks of construction to get started during typically stable weather. And that would be a nice head start. We're also giving them a lot longer lead time to be able to order and get the supplies that they need. So to start this fall, it might all come together and it might work. It's just a little bit less of an assurance because they might run into delays on some of those, and then it's also weather dependent. And to start this fall, I don't think we'll be ready to go in the middle of August. So we're gonna have to go, until Labor Day, start in September.
But without having, our years long pool whisperer here, who
Yeah.
knew exactly how to, fix everything, Loch Ness Monster could submerge from.
That is a very serious risk.
Yeah,
That because now we're asking them to get 2 more seasons, of the
Yeah.
pool, and we hold our breath,
Yeah.
with bubble gum and duct tape every year and like it. And now Ben doing a great job, in really, I think getting a good handle on the pool. So I have no, question about his confidence in working. You just don't know if something, if a pipe breaks under the 13-foot deep well, you're in trouble. You may not reopen and then the project starts that day, because you're not gonna be able to finish the season. You just have to
And
close.
if you're in a bigger world of hurt, just trying to get permits if your project starts that day, so.
So that is a risk to try to get 2 more seasons. It's another consideration.
We have committee next week, I believe. I'm gonna put it as my kind of action items to look into borrowing against taxes, talking about bridge loans, so I'll reach out to you tomorrow with kind of those bullets.
Okay.
And then, can we get Rio info by then?
Yeah.
Let's see,
But
we have
definitely.
a conversation, I think that's important.
Yeah.
And then can you ask the engineers with the timeline that, for them to do them,
Yeah, how quickly they can
turn around and do that?
the drawings.
The
for
drawing,
IDPH.
they can give us the number too, so we,
When,
on,
like, if we said go, how long would it take them?
yeah. We have all the timelines.
Yeah.
Like,
It would work with the architect, and so they would shoot the end of May, but I'll just confirm that separately with the engineer.
So thank you, Scott. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jim,
yeah.
for being gluttons for punishment
Mhm.
and taking on this task. it's exciting to think that this could happen this year, and that's moving at the speed of light, but it sounds like it would be a good thing for the community to be able to do this if we can.
When do we have to tell the state if we want it on a 2-year plan or a 3-year plan?
So we just had to, as Commissioner Wiley mentioned earlier, if we say. That's another new thing with OPLAD, it was just several years ago, it was increased from 400 to 600,000. So 600 is the matching grant. Is the maximum grant, which is what we received. And you know, the projects, there were more than $200 million in projects requested this year, and only 56 million were funded. So we're in you know, a pretty good place beginning our full grant this year. You can take up to 50% of that at the beginning of your project. That, again, that's new. That's only been in the last few years. If you do that, you absolutely have to stay within your 2-year window. If you do not request any of the funds up front, you're going to use them for reimbursement after the project. Then you can request a 1-year extension. Sometimes they'll grant it 6 months, sometimes they grant a year, but
And that date of when you have to either take the money or not is April, based on.
Yeah,
it's just, you have to decide before, it's just before you decide, it's not before April, you know, when we'll execute the grants, but you just have to decide before we would take any money, which if we were gonna take it would, you know, be by the fall. We would have to make that decision if we're gonna finance it, take the money up front. So I would say, and this is Commissioner Weber and I, you know, had discussed it, if we are doing the project in 24, then you're gonna want to take the money up front. We're gonna work within the 2 years. Again, take it in 25, you likely won't want to take the money up front and have that, you know, that cushion of the extension if you need.
The last thought would be, so. You know, it's pretty well defined what we're going to use the money for, right? If there is any room to expand a little something, I know something we talked about in the last board meeting or the one before was about bringing like the food service to the pool, you know, working with Gulf Visions or, you know, the restaurant over there. So I don't know if there's room to think about what kind of investment we would need to make that happen, if any. Maybe it's nothing, but just a thought there.
Yeah.
So I think probably the number one community interest is to have food, like a food service at the pool. So I don't know what it would be, but
Yeah, one of the other things we did talk about, you know, would be to, you know, in the grass area, in the sunning area, to put in a gazebo, and you could almost do, you know, an outdoor kitchen type area, something that maybe could be rented for, you know, if you're having your kids' party, you want to rent or whatever, you know, to reserve this area. I just think it could be bringing revenue and be a great asset. It didn't fit within our 2.7. It was pretty expensive. I think some of this discussion we have with the foundation, you know, and potential, you know, possible like naming rights, you know, maybe there would be, you know, a large company, family that would want to potentially donate something like that, that would make a great addition to the project that, you know, that we're not having to finance.
good point.
All right, so by the committee of the whole, we'll give an update on these different areas. Good, good.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Anything else? Moving on to the 2023 golf course review update.
Well, I was hoping our golf committee chair would be here this
Could
evening.
speak to this, but.
So, I will, page 73, this is the news report they call them. So, the meeting's not even over yet. So, this is, yeah, page 73. Okay, so this is the money that was paid to the park district. for the 2023 numbers, and you can see that the total for the golf course was 1.3 million. Our share, due to be 10%, was 12% of that, so that's the $66,000. In addition to that, Golf Vision paid the park district the $40,000 for capital. So $106,000 that Golf Visions has paid the park district for the past year. For this year coming up, after we renegotiated that contract, the capital payment goes from 40,000 to 50,000 per year, so that's up 10,000, and our share jumps from 12% to 17%. And so even if the revenue was to dip down a little bit because it was a white year, it's likely we would still have receive close to 100,000 or more over for the park district. So much better position for the park, for the golf course than in the past. And so then there are a few pages after that that are, reports that were sent over by Golf Visions.
Like, do you know the golf carts, how they're creating extra ones?
No, that's a good point. So they have another course that they manage that they had provided cards for, and that course decided to do. The own property owner decided to do their own cards, so they have an additional 20 cards that they were going to bring to Lake Bluff this summer, which is, along with the 40 new ones, it's going to be in much better shape. So that for the golf course was a good year,
Yeah, good,
2023.
good to know that really good things are happening with the golf course, and I really, the golf committee is so invested in making this place where people come to, so it's terrific. Okay, written communications, any comments, nothing, correspondence? With that, I want to support. Motion to adjourn. Second. And may I have a ayes? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your work tonight.